Okay, on my last video I had a few suggestions of my own about doing a tutorial on how I paint my figures. So the first one is going to be on very, very basic infantry, which will be the Airfix Prussian Landwehr. And let's face it, you don't get much more basic than that, although they are quite nice figures. Some of the best that Airfix has done. And there's very little flash on them, and I've got more than enough to paint, so I will start with those. It's also a good pointer to how I use a wash to actually get the Prussian blue uniforms, which is the same way I paint my French infantry as well, or any infantry that's, or even cavalry that have got blue uniforms. So that's what I'm going to do first. Then I'm going to do some artillery, and then some cavalry, and that'll cover the three basic units that you have for 1/72 scale Napoleonics. So I hope you can pick up some pointers for that, and of course if you have suggestions as to... Okay, so I'm going to do these in two different poses. First of all, they're going to be these guys kneeling down, who you'd expect in a square or preparing to receive a cavalry charge. The other pose I'm going to do with them are these guys who are standing up loading their muskets. So this will be the rear rank, and these guys will be the front rank. And I've also got a few command figures here, so I'll have 6 guys on a command stand, a couple of guys with flags, 3 sergeants with their spears, whatever they are, and a couple of officers, as well as the guy with the sword there. So that's what I'll be doing. So there'll be 6 on the command stand, 5 blocks of 3 of the guys loading their muskets, and 5 blocks of 3 of the guys receiving the charge. Okay, so that will make 36 figures. Fortunately, with this Airfix set, they're totally devoid of flash or anything that really needs tidying up, so I can skip that stage because they are perfect already. Okay, so that will be the guys that I'm doing. So phase 1, or step 1, is to prepare them for painting. Now, these guys, being very light soft plastic, don't really need a firm base to stick them on, so I find what works perfectly well for the plastic figures I do is to just get some bottle tops, some Coke, Fanta, fizzy water, whatever, just the small size bottle tops, stick a blob of PVA glue on, and then place the figures in the PVA glue. So I'm just about to do that now. So that's those guys now placed, and I'll just put the last one on. There you go, so they are all ready to go. We just wait for the PVA glue to dry, and as usual there's some racket downstairs, but there you go. And these guys have already done, so I'm just waiting for those to dry as well. Okay, so the figures have now dried on the bottle tops, and the next thing to do is to cover them in gesso. So this is the gesso primer. It's a PVA based system or product, so this is what I've used over the last couple of years now, and so far I've done well over 1,000 figures, and I'm not even halfway through it, so a litre will last you a long time. So I'm just going to put some on these figures. Okay, so I've now covered the entire unit with the gesso primer. So the next phase is to paint the pink flesh, so that's the hands and the faces, okay, obviously. Okay, so the one I use for doing the flesh is the Vallejo basic skin tone, but basically any pink colour will do, because we're going to do a red wash over the pink skin anyway to pull out the detail of the facial features and the fingers, which are quite visible on these Airfix ones, so that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so everyone has had their hands and faces painted, and I suppose I hesitated last stage talking about painting all pink, because of course some of these troops for Napoleonics have white gloves on, so you don't paint the pink hands white, so This cavalry usually, and some artillery men for some strange reason. But yeah, normally everyone gets the pink hands and feet treatment. You can probably see, if I zoom in actually, that I've not been particularly accurate with the pink paint, because you're going to be painting over it anyway, and the wash that I'm about to put on will run off the faces and hands onto the parts of the figures anyway, so I'm really not bothered about overrunning areas of uniform with the pink paint. So that's why this can be done very quickly. As long as you've actually covered all of the fleshy areas, then that's fine, so don't worry about that if you do go on to the uniforms, because we're going to paint over that anyway. Okay, so the next phase is to do a thin red wash. Now, because we're just doing a wash, there is absolutely no reason whatsoever to waste some decent Vallejo paint on this, so I usually tend to use a craft paint, or in this case, this is just a large bottle from an art shop. Oh, sorry, not a bottle, is it? It's a tube from an art shop which I've had for many years, and they're quite cheap, so this is what I use for my red washes usually. Okay, so they've now all had a thin wash of red paint on all the faces and hands, and I made sure that I got into all the crevices, which a wash will do, of course, because that's what washes do, and that's why I use them for doing faces, because they've got lots of little features on there. It also means that I don't do painting of the eyes, because that really is just a waste of time for 1/72 scale figures, so it does bring out the features very well, a wash. If I can just get in there, maybe, no, maybe not. But yeah, so now they've all been treated with a thin red wash of paint. Okay, so that now leads me on to doing the black bits. Okay, so there are no shakos on these guys, which means the hats haven't been painted in black, but I have done the boots and the points of the spears. There's no bayonets on them. One of them has got a sword over here, but just him, because the silver paint I'll be dry brushing on them will be going on the spear points and any exposed blades. So no bayonets on the end of the muskets here, so that meant that didn't have to be done either. So not a lot of stuff to be done on black on this particular set. So now I will be doing the undercoat for the jackets and the hats. Now, as this is undercoat and it's going to be given a Prussian blue wash over it, I'm just going to use one of these cheap old craft paints, so I think I might plump for the Blue Lake because that's slightly darker. If I was doing French units, I'd probably go for the lighter blues there. So that's what I'm going to use, the Blue Lake. Right, so this is quite a long task because there's quite a lot of areas to cover with the pale blue paint, so I got bored. Actually, yeah, I did get a little bit bored, so I thought I'd do this section now. So I've done the hats, and I've done all the les tourelles, or whatever they're called, the jackets, and I'll be completing the rest very shortly. But just want to point out that I've been not exactly slapdash with this, but I've not taken undue care on doing this blue phase because I've gone over some of the straps and maybe got a bit of paint on the trousers, but that is of no great import because I shall be doing the Prussian blue wash next. The reason why I do a Prussian blue wash rather than just painting them straight Prussian blue is very thin colour, not very opaque, so what the purpose is to get into all the creases and folds of the uniforms and the hats with the Prussian blue. And also it has the other advantage of starting to pick out the straps and other accoutrements on the figures, so I'm as I say, not taking too much great care. Again, as I did the black boots, you notice I've gone all over the bases with them as well. That is again of no great import because that will be covered over when I get to doing the basing. So don't worry if you've got black paint all over the bases, it is of no great concern at this point. Okay, so there you go, I'll complete the rest of these uniforms. Okay, so I've now got every one of them covered in the blue undercoat, which means I'm about to move on to use the Vallejo Prussian Blue, which I'm going to use as a wash. So I'm going to add some water to that to get it nice and thin enough to wash into all the crevices and creases of these uniforms. Okay, so I've done the Prussian Blue wash. As you can see, this one on the left here, as we look at it, has been washed, and you can see the folds in the coat have started to come out, and this is what they look like before you put the wash. So you can see it brings out some extra detail using the wash. Now I may just leave this wash as it is because I think it's dark enough, and I think maybe another coat of it might just overdo it too much and get rid of some of the folds in the jackets and the blue caps, so I shall leave it at that. Okay, so what we need to do now is the straps across the chests and backs of these guys and the collars and cuffs. Now, because I've been quite sort of liberal with the wash and the undercoat of pale blue, some of quite a lot of the straps and the cuffs have been painted over. So what I do now is I use a white craft paint to just go over the straps first, and the cuffs and the collars. And under the brim of the hat, if I'm going to paint a facing colour on the hat as well, which would look quite good, I think, but it'll just be at the front of the hat, not round the back. So I should be doing that with just a bog standard white craft paint because it's going to be painted over anyway. The other thing about doing the cuffs and collars in white is that you can put on light colour. So if you're doing a yellow or a pale red or something like that, then it will stand out more because it'll be on a white background rather than a shabby blue. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so what I've done now is I've done the straps and the cuffs and the collar, and I've also painted white the little bag that he's got there. I've not done the rucksacks so much because they're going to be a dark colour anyway, and not the little cartridge bag here either because that's going to be black. So there you go. So that's the white phase done. Okay, so what I'm going to use now is the basalt grey to do the trousers of the troops and also the blanket rolls they've got on the top of the knapsacks. Okay, so I have done the grey trousers on all the troops, but I forgot to mention that for the officers, including the standard bearers, I've done their trousers in white, so don't forget to do it that way if you're following what I'm doing. But yeah, so they're in white, and what I'm going to do with both the ones with the white trousers and the grey trousers is do a very thin black wash over them so that it just brings out the detail, because if I just bring it down here, you can just about see that their trousers have turnips, not turnips, otherwise it'd be Swedes. So yeah, just to sort of bring out that emphasis on the turn-ups. And there's a few little divots on the legs as well, so from a distance obviously you're not going to have a clue that I've done a wash, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so that's what I'll do. So I'll be doing thin black wash on the grey and the white trousers. Now the next thing to do, I've chosen to do, is the backpack, and do that in a mahogany brown, which is this one. Yep, mahogany brown. Okay, so that's the one I'm using. And that's the bit to do next. Okay, I shall carry on. So that is the mahogany brown done on all the backpacks. Now what I'm going to do is get the old basalt grey out again and do the blanket rolls on the tops of the backpacks. Right, that's the grey blankets done. And now what I was going to do was the muskets, for which the muskets and the, well, they're not really spears, but there you know, and the standard bearers staffs that the flags are on. So for that I'm going to be using wood grain, because this is it's like a thick wash really, but it does flow into all of the crevices very nicely if there are any on a wooden item. Okay, so that's what I'll be doing on the next stage. Right, so I've done the muskets and the spears and the standards, so what I'm going to do now is the little white bags they've got on the sides there. So what I do with those is I get the burnt umber ink that I have, that I do my horses with, and just give them a once over with that. So burnt umber will do. What I also tend to do is thin it a little bit with water as well, so it's not quite so dark, so that's going to be the next step. Right, so they've all had a wash on the little bags, which makes them look a bit sort of leatherish now. Just need to touch that one up a little bit, but yeah, so that's all that done. Now I've been pondering this for a while and putting it off and off and off as to what colour to do the facings, so I've decided to go for brick red, which is the Brandenburg regiments. So I shall be doing that in the vermilion red, which is this one here. Dark vermilion. Okay, so that's what colour I'll be doing the facings. Right, so I've done the facings. What we've got left to do is the cartridge bag, the bayonet, and the silvering of the musket, and the brassing of the firing mechanism. Then we're just about there, I think, apart from a bit of touching up. So let's get on with the black parts, which are going to be the bayonet and the cartridge bag. So I've done the facings and the collars and epaulets, and that leaves just I've actually done the bayonets as well, and the cartridge bags, so that just leaves the brass or golden bits on the bayonets. I might do them in silver, actually. Silver might look better. I'll do them in silver. And the silvering of the muskets, and just a bit of touching up really. So picking up each figure, seeing where I've made a bit of a mess and tidying it up, and then we're done essentially, apart from the basing. So let's get on with it. Notice I've also done around the let me bring this one up. Okay, let me just zoom out. Anyway, take my word for it, I have done round the caps, so they've got a red band going round, if you might see it on that one. No, it's not going to zoom, is it? But yeah, they've all got the red band round the caps that they're wearing as well. Okay, so on with the painting. So the muskets and spear points and banner spear points have all been silvered, so that only leaves now, well yes, I've also done the bayonets in silver as well, the socket part, so that just leaves the hair at the back of the heads and the musket locks themselves, okay, which I'll be doing in gold because I don't have a correct brass type paint, so that's what I shall be doing for those. Okay, and then we'll be done. So I've now done the musket locks, and that only leaves the hair. Now for the hair I do a mixture of black, brown and an occasional blonde. As these are German troops, I think most of them will have dark black hair, so that would vary on the race. I mean, for the French in particular, I do a lot of those with dark hair as well, and lots of browns in there. So I shall be what I've mainly been using for doing these figures is a 3-0 brush. So I might be able to get away with that for doing the hair, but I also have a 4-0, and if I can grab them, a 5-0. I mean, the difference between a 4-0 and a 5-0 is neither here nor there, but this requires the use of a very small brush, as these figures are quite small. I was just thinking earlier as well on these, when I did the wash on the uniform, I could have done a second Prussian blue wash which would have made them a bit darker, but then I would have probably felt the need to do a highlight on there, and I haven't really got a blue that would match doing a highlight on here. See, the blue that I've got is just too pale really, so I'd need something in between a sort of lake blue or the azure blue, this one, between a Prussian blue and an azure blue, so I didn't bother in the end. I mean, you could do that, you could do 2 coats of Prussian blue, but then you would probably require a highlight, and at this scale, is it really worth it? And there you have it. So this is the commander. Notice the gold buttons I managed to sneak in there, and not a bad little effort on his moustache either. And the hair at the back, and I did use that 4-0 brush in the end because it's very, very accurate, and these are very small figures for 1/72 scale. Looks like I've got to, this is the thing, looks like I've just got to touch up his trousers a bit, and he's done. So I shall put him to one side. And the standard bearers, quite fiddly, but there you go. Might make the flag a bit whiter, but yeah, I think I'll do that. And maybe run a small wash over it just to get into those little indented bits there as well. Yes, in fact, that's what I will do. Okay, so that's that one. And the guys with the spears. There you go. And the guys standing up loading. I did run a thin black wash over all the grey trousers, by the way. Not so sure that'll come out at this resolution, but it was done, and I can assure you it looks as if it has been done close up as well. So there you go. And the kneeling guys. Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is just go around each figure, just seeing what needs touching up. Like for example in here I could do some gloss white on the white straps there, to make it show up a bit better, because they're a bit whitey grey at the moment. So, and that's it, basically ready for basing. I also think I need to do a bit on his epaulets there, a bit more red, so just a matter of going around and seeing if they can be slightly touched up for each one. Okay. And of course I've just realised I didn't do the sword belt, so I've done that now. There you go. Yes.